Shivaya sir, good morning.
Good morning.
Om Sadashiva Sankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti
Shanti, Shanti.
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya, good morning.
So
we saw that with the last class, we saw that Krishna had more or less finished his discussion on Nididhyasanam. And today we are looking at verse number 33, where Krishna's talk is over and Arjuna is going to say something. So we will chant. Verse number 33, 6th Adhyaya. Arjuna Uvacha
Arjuna
Yoyam Yogastvaya Proktaha
Yoyam yogastvaya praktah
Samyena Madhusudhana
Samena madhusudana
Etasyaham na pashyami
Etasyaham na pashyami
Chanchalatvat sthitim sthiram
Chanchalatvastitim sthiram.
Okay. So, first the simple word meanings. Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna said, Hey Madhusudana, O Krishna, Chanchalatvat, because of chanchalam, because of restlessness, aham na pashyami, I do not see etasya sthiram sthitim. I do not see the steady existence or the continuance or the commitment to the etasya means to all this teaching of yours, to this nididhyasanam yoga of yours. I do not see how that can be steady in my life because, and what is this yoga? Ayam yogaha tvaya proktaha. That yoga which has been talked about by you. So, yoyam yogas tvaya proktaha. That nididhyasanam instructions which you are given, I do not see how can they exist steadily in my life. Samyena. Samyena means this instructions were given by you as the sameness of vision, as the vision of non-duality. Okay, so that is simply the word meaning. As I said, with the previous verse, Krishna has finished the topic of Nididhyasana. Now the question is, what is necessary for that Nididhyasanam to be successful in our life? What is necessary for me to be a successful Nididhyasaka yogi? And therefore, this question of Arjuna is introducing that particular topic. That what is necessary for success in Vedantic Nididhyasanam? What is that? Sadguna. The Sadgunas. And Sadgunas were mentioned in Tattvabodha also under a different name, Sadhana Chathusthaya Sampattihi. The qualifications required for Vedantic success, for an adhikari. But Tattvabodha is like Purva Janma, right? It's so far away that we don't remember. And therefore, it is reintroduced here. Krishna knows that you guys have done Tattvabodha years ago and that everybody has forgotten everything. So he says, Chalo, let me reintroduce that. So briefly, Karma Yoga gives what? Viveka, Vairagyam, and therefore Mumukshutvam. What is Upasana Yoga? Samadhi Shatka Sampatti, which we talked about. And in the Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali also, the entire Ashtanga is Samadhi Shatka Sampatti tools for Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. And Shankara in his commentary refers to Ashtanga Yoga as Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali. Shankara says it is Samadhi Yoga, meant for focus of mind. In the absence of this Samadhi Shatka Sampatti, which we are now calling Sadgunas, the virtues necessary, the good virtues, the noble virtues is Sadgunaha. Vedanta will be received by you, even in the absence of Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. If you are sitting in class week after week, every Sunday, Vedanta will definitely be received by you, but it will not be available in Vyavaharika. In your transactions, it will not be available. You will be Jivan Mukta, all right, but only between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings. All the other time, you will be a samsari. Okay. And how do you know you are a samsari? Because your mind is preoccupied with some worry or the other all the time. That is a samsari. And if you find that your mind is like this, then I will say that don't drop Nididhyasanam. You still practice Nididhyasanam, but with a modification. Nididhyasanam, we said, up to this time should be practiced for what purpose? For changing my mindset from the triangular format to the binary format. But Nididhyasanam, the meditation, is also possible for developing Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. And therefore, if you find that you are a samsari all the time, that the teaching, remember the teaching is already almost over. Teaching which has been received by you in all these 6 chapters so far, if you find that in spite of receiving that teaching, in spite of remembering that teaching, in spite of making the most copious of all notes, in spite of reading the notes every day, you find your mind is still bothered by small things, then you should meditate for the purpose of developing the Sadgunas, Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. Okay. And once Samadhi Shatka Sampatti is done, you have got a little Samadhi Shatka Sampatti, you got Sadgunas, you will find that the worry time is coming less. And when the worry is becoming less, then the teaching is working upon you, and then you should switch back to practicing Nididhyasanam, not for Samadhi Shatka Sampatti, but for changing the format from triangular to binary. Therefore, as I said, you can practice meditation also for Sadgunas, also for developing Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. And that is now Nirguna Brahma Upasana. Okay, you are still going to meditate upon Aham Brahmasmi, but it is a Upasana. It is no longer Jnanam. In Jnanam, you claim that you are Brahman. And here, this is what Krishna is now presenting. You will find that it is a practice of meditation for the purpose of dealing with the Dhyana Pratibandha, the obstacles to the practice of meditation. Pratibandha means obstacles, Dhyana means meditation. So now we'll find in the next 4 verses are dealing with obstacles to the practice of meditation and how to get around those obstacles, the parihara. So the topic now is Dhyana Pratibandha and Dhyana Pratibandha Parihara, solutions for these obstacles. What is the significance of the Pratibandha, of the obstacles? As long as the obstacles are there, the mind is not fully subject to discipline. And if the mind remains undisciplined, then remember that Vedantic study remains in the intellect. It is not assimilated. Vedanta is studied. You memorized. Information is there, but it does not benefit you. Transformation does not take place. And as Vedantic students, we should be very clear that I am not studying Vedanta for information about the scriptures. I am studying it to transform myself. And therefore, information will be there, knowledge will be there. You would have received Shravanam, even Mananam would have received. But the obstacle is what? It is in the form of the indiscipline of the mind. Now, if any of you by now are feeling the FIR reduction, feeling that disturbances in the mind are coming down and have come down drastically. After all, we have all been here for more than 2.5, 3 years in this class. So if you are finding that the obstacles have come down drastically, it means that this mental indiscipline is not there. If your disturbances have come down, then you may have some mental disturbances, some mental indiscipline, but it's not there in a very large measure. But if after all this study of 2-3 years, if your emotional problems are still present, if small things disturb you, if you get angry when the milkman doesn't come in the morning, or when your kid shouts out at night, then there is a sign what you know and what you are. There is a huge gap. And if there is a gap between what you know and what you are, what you know means what? What you know you should be and what you actually are. So a gap between knowledge and reality, then it indicates that the problem is not lack of knowledge. The problem is lack of the discipline, the lack of the samadhi, shatka sampattihi, the lack of the sadgunas. And therefore, you don't require Shravanam to remedy that. You require a separate sadhana, a separate mental discipline called Mano Nigraha. Right? And therefore, this Nididhyasanam, this Vedantic meditation that Krishna is talking about, has talked about for so long, it is mandatory only for a person where there is a gap between what I am and what I know I should be. Okay. Which is most of us actually. Okay. Let us be very frank about that. Most of us are like that. Then the question will come up. If you are saying most of us are like that, then there are some of us who are not like that. For some of us, Nididhyasanam is not necessary. Which means they don't have Dhyana Pratibandha, they don't have mental obstacles. Then how is it that some people have this problem and some people do not have the problem? That is a valid question. The answer is that if you were doing the study exactly as the Shastram intended, which means you were adhikari before you began the study. You were a Veda adhikari for Veda. You had this yogyata for Vedic study, which means you had the necessary sadgunas, you had the necessary samadhi shatka sampattihi before you began the study. Then for you, Nididhyasanam is not necessary. And there are some people who had this sadhana chatushtayam before they began the study. Though they were sadhana chatushtaya sampanna before they began the study. And therefore, for them, the benefits started flowing immediately when Shravanam was over, or Shravanam and Mananam was over. But generally, all of us start the study without acquiring the necessary qualifications. Therefore, even though we have started the study, we are anadhikaris. And because of that anadhikari one, that because of having been a non-qualified student, my mind is not yet ready, even though I have finished Shravanam. And for such people, Shravanam and Maranam should be compulsorily followed by Vedantic meditation, Nididhyasanam. Okay, sorry about that. So I said for such people, Vedantic study should be compulsorily followed by Vedantic meditation, Nididhyasana. In this, there is a Upanishad called Mandukya Upanishad. Okay, in that, Shankaracharya on his commentary on that, on Gaudapada's comment, there is a Gaudapada commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad called the Gaudapada Karikas. Shankaracharya has commented on the Karika itself. He makes this very clear that Vedantic study should be followed by compulsory Vedantic meditation for those people who have not got full sadgunas. Right. Now, Arjuna himself is saying what? Right now he's saying that I have this problem, hey Krishna. You have given me the knowledge, but chanchalatva titim thiram. I don't get the benefit that you are promising me. And in the Mandukya Karika, Gaudapada deals with this discipline in the name of, and he calls it Mano Nigraha. And since it's important to us, and since Krishna does not mention it here, so basically you will find that in scriptures, certain things are mentioned in certain texts, and they are not mentioned in other texts. And that is why we say that to really understand the scriptures, we need a sustained, long-term, systematic study so that you cover a series of texts, not just one text. And even though Bhagavad Gita is a very, very comprehensive text, some things are not there, like what I am talking about right now. What are the obstacles? Okay, so Gaudapada mentions the obstacles. Krishna doesn't mention it here. And so briefly, I'll tell you what the obstacles are there as mentioned in Mandukya Karika. So Gaudapada says there are 4 obstacles. And what are they? Layaha, Vikshepaha, Kashayaha, and Rasaswadaha. Rasaswadaha, he calls it Rasaswadaha. There are 4 obstacles which will ensure, obstacles are present, it will ensure that I don't get the benefit of Nididhyasana, of meditation. What is the first one? Layaha, dullness of the mind. Right? Your mind is not active. When we sit for meditation, that dhyanam will end up as sleeping. You will close your eyes and you will go to sleep and not be active at all. Your mind won't be alert. Vikshepaha. The mind is, so that the first one is layaha, dullness of the mind. Vikshepaha, an overactive mind. It thinks of everything else excepting Vedanta. So the mind is extroverted. It goes all around the place. That is, the first one is dullness, almost inert mind. Second one is overactive mind, Vikshepaha. The third one is called Kashayaha. Kashaya is basically, the mind is neither non-functional nor is it wandering. So it happens, for example, and the correct word is stupefied, shocked into a state of inactivity. So here, remember, it is not non-functional. It's neither asleep nor is it wandering. When does this happen? Let us say you get very shocking news. And if anybody has ever gone through the experience, you'll know that the mind does not know how to react to that. It's a very, very shocking news for you, very painful maybe, but you don't cry. The mind doesn't react. It doesn't know how to react. The mind stops. So why does it stop? When the pain, it's a natural function. Nature is got as a, protect for your own protection. When the pain which you are going to receive or which you are receiving is beyond a particular limit, beyond the limit which you can bear actually, what happens? Nature says, okay, fine, I will switch off your mind temporarily, right? It's like the electronic circuit breaker in the houses. When there's a huge influx of current, it switches off. Similarly, when the pain is beyond a bearable limit, the mind switches off. And that switched off mind is called kashaya. You are awake, you are hearing, but you are not reacting. So that's called kashaya. And after some time, when the mind has had time to cope, the mind comes back. Kashaya state goes away. And Shankara says that very strong likes and dislikes, like raga, dvesha, extremely strong likes and dislikes, have the potential to cause this stunning of the mind, stupefaction of the mind. And how is it relevant here? Let us say that intense raga, dvesha, intense sorrow is there in potential form in your mind, right? That is called kashaya. When you go into meditation, sometimes that intense sorrow, intense pain is triggered. Why is it not triggered during your waking time? Because your mind is busy with a dozen other things. But during meditation, you are face to face with your mind. And that intense sorrow sometimes gets triggered. And if it gets activated during the meditation, then the mind goes into this stunned condition called kashaya. But kashaya is also an obstacle for nididhyasana. The third one is rasaswadaha, literally meaning taste of something. Rasa is the taste of the rasa is the thing which is tasty, and swadaha is the taste itself. So in meditation, how is it relevant here? In meditation, normal meditation, because the mind is relaxed, the intellect is relaxed, the body is relaxed, you are in a comfortable state. There is a certain amount of pleasure, which is why a lot of people like meditation, because you come out of that feeling very comfortably relaxed. So this comfort is called rasaha, right? This comfort which you feel when you are in meditation is called rasaha. This joy, remember, is kosha ananda. It belongs to the koshas. It is not atma ananda or brahma ananda. Why? Because atma ananda and brahma ananda are your nature, and they don't come and go. They are always there. But this particular comfort is experienced when it is experienced in meditation only. When meditation is over, that joy also goes away. So it is temporary joy, which you enjoy only during meditation. That's called rasaha. And swadaha is the tendency to be attached to that particular meditative joy. You get carried away with that joy of meditation, so that you want to be in meditation more and more, more and more. What is the purpose this time? Only to get that pleasure. Vedanta says that you should not be so obsessed that you want to get that pleasure all the time, because the moment you get obsessed by pleasure, that's what happens. It has become an addiction. Any addiction is an obstacle for Vedantic meditation, and this addiction to this pleasure which is found in meditation is called rasaswadaha. The purpose of nididhyasanam is not to enjoy happiness in a particular state, right? Which is what is being mentioned here. That rasaswadaha means what? I am happy during the state of meditation, during the period of meditation. That is not the purpose of nididhyasanam. The purpose of nididhyasanam is to be purnam, full and complete, in and through all conditions of the body and the mind. That is why rasaswadaha, Gaudapada says, meditation pleasure is an obstacle. And instead of enjoying the pleasure, what should you do? You should focus on the teaching What does the teaching say? You are Ananda not only during the meditation, but also outside meditative life. So these are the 4 obstacles. Before we talk about the remedies, I just want to know whether the obstacles are clear. Any question about the obstacles? Because it's not mentioned in the Gita, so it's not covered by us for later on also. Only this is the portion where we cover it.
So when the rasa swada happens, so you want to ignore it or you want to?
You ignore it. You can enjoy it, no harm. But make sure that the objective of the next meditation session is not to get back that rasaswada. Meditation, nididhyasanam is not for enjoying that particular rasaswada. It is for understanding that you are Ananda.
Acharya ji.
Yes, please.
The third one, that Kesha Ashaya, you said the mind gets switched off when you are in the stock stage. So, is it that happens automatically, or do we have the will to come out of that?
You can think of it if you ever seen somebody who has had a very bad shock. Somebody has died who he or she was very close to. They often say that, I don't know if you've seen this story, that somebody goes into a shock when close one dies and doesn't react. So don't they say that make that person cry?
Yes.
That is the state of rasaswada, that kashaya. Mind is not reacting at all.
Okay.
Frozen mind.
Like mind is numb.
Mind is stunned, numb, yes. Okay, so we have seen the 4 obstacles, the pratibandhas. And Gaudapada also deals with the remedies for the disease. So take the first one, layaha. So Gaudapada says that this sleepy state should be addressed using 2 methods. One is removing the cause of the sleep. Because if you are sleepy, that means there is something wrong. And what is the cause of the sleep? So he says one is bahu ashana, overeating, right? So if you sit for meditation with a full stomach, what happens? All the blood circulation is going where? Towards the digestion. And therefore nothing is available for you for focus. So bahu ashana is the cause of sleep. Then ajirnaha, indigestion. If the stomach is upset, buddhi is also upset and therefore not available for meditation. And the most common, nidra sheshaha. Sheshaha means remnant. Nidra sheshaha means there is a remaining portion of sleep. There is a backlog of sleep, which means that a body requires more sleep. So these 3 are there. They are the causes of sleep. What are remedies for overeating? You should ensure that you don't overeat. And we know the shastric prescription. Eat half of the stomach, fill quarter with water, and leave the rest. That is the shastric prescription for eating. And if you do that regularly, the bahu ashana problem will not be there. And that is why we recommend eating twice a day. Now, of course, assuming that you have no medical problems, just the brunch and an early dinner should be enough to get over this bahu ashana problem. Ajirnaha is stomach upset. So again, too much eating does cause stomach upset, but bad food can also cause. Therefore, sattvic food is recommended. Then nidra sheshaha means you should get your backlog of sleep. Make sure that you know how much sleep your body needs. This is different from person to person. Some people need 8 hours, some people need 7 hours, 6 hours, some people can do with 4 hours. You should be familiar with what your own body needs. Don't go by, what somebody else does. So they say Modi sleeps for 3 hours. Means okay, if he sleeps for 3 hours, it is fine, but that is his body system. You can't do with that. And certainly you should know exactly how much sleep I require for me to feel fresh. And if you do that, make sure you get that much sleep. If you say require 7 hours sleep, the average, or 6.5 hours sleep, make sure you get the 6.5 hours before you get in for meditation. Okay. Right. That is the first way, removing the cause of the obstacle, which is laya, sleep, lack of sleep. This is lack of this causes the obstacle. The second way is by practicing. So first is removing the cause. We are talking about laya still, right? Second is by practicing. And what is the advantage of practice? It becomes a nature. So if you remember what is known as Pavlov's experiment. What did Pavlov do? You ring a bell and give food to the dog. Supposing you buy a new dog, you ring a bell, give the food to the dog. First day. Second day, you ring a bell, give food to the dog. Third day, you ring a bell, give food to the dog. Do it for a week. After 1 week, when you ring the bell, what happens? The dog starts looking for the food. The dog has associated the bell with the food. That association takes place. Your mind begins to associate a certain, set of circumstances with a certain set of something else. How is it relevant here? You should get into a habit, say 4:30 in the morning, get up, have a wash, brush your teeth, go to a room, put out the lights and sit. Okay. Normally going to a room, lying down on the bed, putting off the lights, the mind associates with sleeping. But when you do the same thing, but don't sleep anymore, but you have already had a bath, and then you sit down quietly, and you're in sitting position, you're not lying down. This is the abhyas or the practice. So slowly, over a period of time, the mind associates that sitting down in that particular room, on that particular seat, at that particular time, with what? Meditation. So the mind begins to understand that it's meditation time and I should not feel sleepy. So this is a method of remedying the problem of sleep. These two methods are there. One is removing the cause, and one is the very practice itself. And of course, ideally, use both the methods. Get enough sleep and get into the practice. That is how to handle laya problem. Vikshepa problem is what? Wandering mind. So, Gaudapada deals with this, but we will deal with this later in this chapter because Krishna himself deals with how to handle Vikshepa. So, we are not talking about that right now. Then Kashayaha. So, there are hidden, intense problems in the mind, unexpressed sorrows, suppressed guilt, suppressed pain, suppressed anger, suppressed jealousy, suppressed resentment. And when they are very, very strong, and you come face to face with them during your meditation, they have the capacity to immobilize the mind. Right? The problem is what? I do not know which emotion I have suppressed. Whether it is sorrow, whether it is guilt, whether it is pain. They are all in my subconscious mind, not directly available for perception. Therefore, I do not know which are the ones which I have suppressed. There is only one thing I can do. Meditating in that meditative position, I just keep quiet and alert and wait for something to emerge, to surface. And then you will see, what will you see? In 1964, you called me a dirty dog. You know, how many years have passed? 50 years have gone. But you are still carrying that. That you will see and you have to let it go. The mind is capable of storing these negative experiences, and the mind will serve it up to you only when appropriate conditions are there. In normal day-to-day life, you have plenty of things to deal with. Your mind has got a lot of problems to deal with. Therefore, these past problems will not surface, or may not surface. And that is why we always recommend, at least I always recommend, that you go to an ashram for 10 days, 15 days in a month and stay there. you immerse yourself in the life of the ashram, what will you find? You have satsangs, you have hatha yoga practice. You don't have, the mind is not given time to dwell on the problems of your day-to-day life. And therefore, in meditation, because there are no other problems, your suppressed problems can surface. How do you deal with them? If there are suppressed emotions, you have to let it out. If you want to shout, you shout. If you want to cry, you cry. You do not suppress. And therefore, you will find that in the ashram, some meditation sessions, for some people, there will be crying sessions, anger sessions, jealousy sessions, or at least afterwards, they will be very seriously upset. You have to let them out. And let them, and if you let them out without being attached, without being knowing that this is the reason that the suppressed emotions are coming out, that alertness itself will make the impact less on you. So all of them you will let out, you will feel better also. You can punch a pillow if you want to. Okay. So this is how to deal with kashayam. Then rasaswadaha. This is to be tackled by intellect only. What is the thinking process? The pleasure that I enjoy in meditation is nitya or anitya? It is anitya. And therefore, I should not become a slave of that pleasure. Why? Because Shastram tells me that I am Purnaha all the time. I am complete Ananda all the time, not just during my meditation session. So I am Purnaha all the time. I am Asangaha all the time. I am Anandaha all the time, not at meditation time only. And therefore, this kind of intellectual discrimination is the remedy. This is how to handle the 4 obstacles. Okay. Any questions on the obstacles and the handling? Because they're very, very important, since any of you who do meditation will face these. Okay. So, assuming that you have all understood, let us get back to the verse number 33. So, Arjuna said, Yogaha tvaya proktaha. Hey Krishna, Madhusudana, Yogaha tvaya proktaha. This Dhyana yoga, this Nidhi Dhyasanam which you have talked about, tvaya proktaha, which you talked about, Samyena, in the form of Samadarsanam, which is what? Samadarsanam means what? The same view. Viewing myself as Chaitanya Swarupam. So in the form of Atma Darshanam. Dwelling upon my real nature. Okay. And this is called Samyak Darshana Yoga. It is the complete view. During all my transactions in this world, I must remember that I am the Atma only. Remembering that this body is passing through its prarabdha, and because of that prarabdha, this body-mind complex is interacting with the world. The body changes, the mind changes. Body has certain problems, mind has certain problems. But I am the witness consciousness, I am changeless. And within me, this body and this mind is changing. They are all objects of my consciousness. I am the witness consciousness, the Sakshi Chaitanya. And therefore, I am Samaha. I am the same consciousness in every single body. If I can do this, even when you are fighting with your husband or wife, in the middle of that fight, ask yourself, can I claim that I am Jivan Mukta? Right? Not after the fight, not before the fight. During the fight, when you are screaming at your husband, can you say that I am still Jivan Mukta? This is Samadarshan. This is the Samadarshanam, knowing that your Atma in the middle of all transactions. And therefore he says, Hey Krishna, this Atma Vrittihi that you have taught me. Fine, I have understood. But what is the problem? Etasyaham sthiram sthitim na pashyami. This particular teaching, sthiram sthitim na pashyami, I am not able to retain. I have received the teaching, but I cannot, sthitim sthiram, I cannot retain it steadily in my mind. Okay, so with this, to understand the statement, we should know the three types of students. There are three types of students. And they are based into these classes, three types, three classes. Whenever you divide something into a particular type or a particular class, there should be a parameter on which you divide. Right? You can't just arbitrarily divide. And therefore, there should be a parameter. And there are two parameters here. Reception of the jnanam, retention of the jnanam. And based on these reception and retention parameters, all students, all shishyas, all Vedantic sadhakas are divided into three types. Uttama sadhaka, Madhyama sadhaka, Adhama sadhaka. Uttama means excellent. Madhyama means middling. Adhama, or another name is Mandhaha, means the lowest. How do we divide? What is the classification? The Uttama sadhaka has got both teaching, that is reception of the teaching, and retention. For him, he has received the teaching, but he has retained the teaching. For him, both the parameters are present. Reception and retention, both are present. And therefore, even during the worst crisis in his life, as I said, even during a fight with his wife, when both are screaming at each other, the shock absorber is there. He knows that he is Brahman. He is a Uttama Adhikari with the reception and retention capacity intact. That is the Uttama student, Uttama Sadhaka, Uttama Adhikari. That is the top of the scale. Then you go to the bottom of the scale. Adhama Adhikari or Mandha Adhikari, the lowest form of Adhikari, the lowest form of student. He doesn't have reception at all. Right? And if he doesn't have reception, where is the question of retention? He has not received the teaching in spite of having sat in that class for 3 years. And if you have not received the teaching, there is no question of reception only. So Uttama Adhikari has got both reception and retention. Manda Adhikari or Adhama Adhikari, the lower student, has got neither reception nor retention. So if you don't understand anything, where is the question of receiving the teaching? So those people who don't understand the teaching at all, they don't receive. And if they don't receive, they don't retain. So these are two types. Then the third one is in the middle, Madhyama Adhikari. He receives the teaching. He knows he is Brahman. He understands. But the moment he is out of class and puts on his chappals, all his problems return in full force, and therefore the teaching is not available to him as a shock absorber. And if you honestly analyze ourselves, you will have to admit that most of us are in the Madhyama Adhikari category. We have received the teaching, but it's not available to us in the times of crisis. And therefore, minds are subject to a lot of fluctuations because the teaching is not available. If the teaching was available, the mind would not fluctuate at all. It is not available. And therefore, for us, FIR goes from top to bottom all the time, excepting between 8 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday mornings, where you are Uttama, where at that point of time, you are Adhikari, you are receiving the teaching. But the moment you step out, the retention is not there. Now, Krishna doesn't bother to address the other two. He's addressing only Madhyama Adhikaris. Why? Uttama he does not need to address because he has received and retained. Manda Adhikari he does not need to address because he has not received at all. So he does not need to be addressed. And therefore, Arjuna says, Hiram Sthitim na Pashyami. I have received the teaching, I have received the jnanam, but I do not see this jnanam in my mind all the time. The jnanam doesn't have continued existence in all my mind, in which means what? I have not retained the jnanam all the time. And therefore, I am a madhyama adhikari. In Nididhyasanam, I start with Vedantic teaching, Aham Brahma Asmi, but 1 minute later, I find that my mind is in the Pizza Hut. It's not in Brahman anymore. And because of what? Chanchalatva. Because of the movement of the mind. This is called Rajoguna dominance. Rajoguna pradhanam. Rajoguna dominance is there. His problem is his excess of Rajoguna is there. Rajoguna indicates a wandering mind. There are plenty of mental preoccupations. There are disturbances in the mind. And in Tattvabodha language, the word chanchalam here is Samadhi Shatka Sampatti Abhavaha. Absence of Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. Absence of Sadgunas. That is what called chanchalam. What is the reason for this abhava, for this absence? That is the question. Because I have spent 20 years studying Vedanta. Right? There should be no absence of this particular sadgunas. And this is a very common mistake for a Vedantic student. Even though I have spent years studying Vedanta, I have not focused on Upasana. Most Vedantic students are so, thrilled with jnanam that they underestimate the value of karmakanda. They underestimate the value of upasana. So I may have done karma yoga. I've got viveka, vairagyam, mokshatam, all these I've got. But I have not done upasana. And therefore vikshepa has not been handled. And therefore, even though I have received Vedantic teaching, I am struggling with the non-assimilation. I find that all the information is there, but no transformation is there. And therefore Arjuna says, Thiram sthitim na pashyami. That knowledge does not continue to remain in my mind and does not help me in times of crisis. And therefore, during any crisis, what happens? I become Artha Bhaktaha. I become the person who is dependent upon Ishvara again. And therefore, Shankara adds here in his commentary that this abhava of Samadhi Shattaka Sampatti is very, very common in most Vedantics. What is the result? Vedanta is not available during your vyavahara, during your transactions. And this is a very peculiar situation because the jnanam that I am Jivan Mukta exists. I have claimed the jnanam. What is the jnanam? I am Jivan Mukta. I have claimed the jnanam, but I have not claimed the mukti. Very peculiar. The knowledge that I am a Mukta Purusha is there, but I have not claimed the mukti. Knowledge is there, but not claimed. Knowledge is there, but not assimilated. And therefore, during 8 to 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings, you are in binary format. But the moment you switch that laptop off, the moment I say Purnamada, that binary format gets displaced by the triangular format. And this is because of abhava of Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. What is required? What remains to be done is to remove the abhava, which is the obstacle. And when such a sadhaka practices nididhyasanam for the purpose of removing of this Samadhi Shatka Sampatti abhava, for the purpose of developing the sadgunas, that nididhyasanam changes form into upasana. It becomes what is known as nirguna brahma upasana, which is also called abheda upasana. By practicing of this upasana, the knowledge which is with obstacles. So technically we call it sa pratibandhaka jnanam. Knowledge with obstacles will get converted into apratibandhaka jnanam. Knowledge without obstacles. Right? And Arjuna addresses Krishna as Madhusudanaha. Madhu is sweet. Ahankara is always sweet. Therefore, Madhusudana means Ahankara Sudana. Sudana means destroyer. Hey, destroyer of Ahankara. That is the meaning of the term Madhusudana over here. And so Arjuna says, hey Madhusudana, this is what I experience. Okay, with this we'll stop for today. We can take a little Nididhyasanam later, but before that, any questions?
Oh, Acharya ji, Madhusudana means something else also is there. If I'm not.
Tell me.
Madhu is some demon who has Krishna has killed a demon whose name was Madhu. Is that correct?
Can you find in the Mahabharata any demon named Madhu?
No, I didn't find. So
There
it's
is
written in some book I have read.
the literal meaning of Madhusudana is killing of Madhu. Whether Madhu is demon or Madhu is Ahankara, you have to know from the context. And if you have read the Mahabharata and not found a Madhu who was killed, then you have to take the alternative meaning with Ahankara.
Okay, thank you, Acharya ji.
All right. Any other questions?
Acharya, just
Yes,
a simple
please.
one. So you mentioned that an Uttam Adhikari is there, but if he is screaming and shouting, then also he remembers that he is Brahman. But my bone of contention is somebody really understands that Uttam Adhikari. Why would he
won't be
really?
screaming and shouting. I know, but I'm just presenting it as, can you remember under all circumstances?
Okay.
You may not be screaming and shouting because that is voluntary. But somebody may be screaming and shouting at you. So if, for example, your husband is screaming and shouting at you, can you remember that I am Brahman?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Om Acharya.
Yes, please.
So you mentioned about how to overcome the cause of obstacles on the path for the laya.
Yeah.
Bahuvachana. Is it Bahuvachana?
Bahuvachanam means?
Or the overeating you mentioned about
Ashanam. Ashanam means eating.
Ashanam. And Ajirna and Nidra Shesha you have mentioned, right?
Yes.
So these are for laya, right?
These are for laya. They are the reasons why your mind is not, mind is slightly restless in that state. So you're feeling very sleepy. You're not focused. Mind is tired, basically.
Right. But are there anything else even for that? Or other ones also? Vikshepaha, Kashayaha, Rasasvabha.
Vikshepa, we are going to deal with later, so that we didn't talk about it. Kashaya, I said that you have to ensure that you can let out those emotions. We all discuss all this. That's why I say, please go back, because a lot of ideas are being discussed, right? So if you try to just focus on the class only and then try to understand, you are not going to be able to do it. And therefore, I will request everybody, please go back at least 2 or 3 times after the class, after this, between next Sunday and today, at least 2 or 3 times, you must listen to the same class, jot down all the important points, and then you will know. A lot of us don't want to do that, so they try to understand through the class alone. That is not going to work. It's a very, very heavy subject.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll get to a short session. So please sit back, close your eyes comfortably. Try to sit with your back straight, your head, and your neck in one straight line. All these instructions we'll see. We have already seen how to sit. Okay. So today we'll talk about Shamaha, the value of being composed. And this is a value which is very much talked about in the Shastram. Of course, being composed, being cool and calm is not just for Vaidikas, it's not for us, just for a Vedantic sadhaka. But it is very important, especially more important for a Vedantic sadhaka. Because when your mind is restless, you are not able to focus on the teaching. And when I examine myself, I know that my mind is restless most of the time. An objective analysis will show me that my mind is restless majority of the time. Smallest disturbance, I get impatient, I get irritated, I get angry. And the irritation and anger very often expresses in verbal violence and sometimes even physical violence. I shout at others, I scream at others. I think shouting and screaming will make me feel better. But at the end of the shouting and screaming, I find that my mind is more disturbed than before. That anger, that violence it brings out a temporary insanity in me. I forget Vedanta, I forget puja, I forget pilgrimage, I forget who is standing in front of me. Is it my wife or is it my husband? Is it my mother or my father? Everything is forgotten. I become an animal. And that behavior causes damage to me, damage to relationships, damage to others. But the biggest damage is to me alone. Because it destroys all the effect of all my Vedantic sadhana. It makes the teaching unavailable to me completely. And therefore, the primary duty of a Vedantic seeker, my primary duty is to protect myself from angry thoughts. It is for my own benefit, because without that, all my sadhana has no fruit at all. And since it's a very, very common fault, the remedy is patience. And I have to give very special attention to this tendency to get irritated. I have to repeatedly remind myself, not once, not twice, and not hundreds of times, but thousands of times, that I will be patient. I have to remind myself so many times that it will become like a samskara, a thinking pattern. And therefore, even as the angry thought arises, the background thought will come that you are getting angry, be patient. It's a very difficult process because sometimes people take advantage of you. And if you do not show anger, they continue to take advantage of you. And we often think, and the world often tells us, it is necessary for getting things done. Anger is necessary for getting things done. All these are false ideas. Whatever you lose in this world, it is better to lose all of that than to lose your peace of mind. Because if your peace of mind is lost, your jnanam is obstructed, your moksha is obstructed. Therefore, it is better to be patient, to have this kshamaha, not to be angry. And I should constantly remind myself, I will not be angry, I will not be irritated, I will be patient, I have no anger, I have no irritation, I am patient, I am patient, I am patient. remind myself thousands of times over the week, thousands of times over the month, and sooner or later I will find that this becomes a vasana. This I will not be angry replaces the anger vasana. Whenever an angry thought comes, I will find that a corresponding warning comes in my mind. A corresponding warning comes in my mind. I can see the space between my anger where I can insert that thought and prevent myself from reacting. I will be patient. I will not be angry. Is the remedy for anger. With this, we'll stop for today. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om
Thank you.
Thank you, Acharya.